welcome to worship with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ventura. I am the Reverend Dana Worsnop, and it is my honor and delight to serve as this congregation's minister.
I am Worship Associate Sue Brinkmeyer. We welcome all into this virtual space made sacred by our presence together. We begin each service by acknowledging that the land each of us is on is the ancestral home of Indigenous peoples. Theirs was a sacred relationship with the land. May we too be aware of all inhabitants, previous and present, and walk reverently upon these lands, carrying their memory.
So when people ask me what Unitarian Universalists believe, there is nothing I can say, general or specific, that applies to every one of us. This is partly because we love questions, sometimes more than answers. At our best, we are a curious people filled with wonder, open to new insight. Today's service is a testament to that. It is a question box service in which, rather than preaching a homily, I will answer questions that people from the church have submitted and I have not seen previously. This should be fun. Actually, I think it will be. A couple of announcements. Next Sunday is our flower communion service. And this year we will invite you to come by the church this coming Saturday between 11 and 2 with a flower. You can leave your flower and then take one that someone else has left for you. We will also have a simple and fun flower craft. And we will be staggering arrival times, so please check UUCV this week and our Facebook page to see what your suggested time slot is. And then we invite you to bring your flower that you've received and or your craft flower, and we will share them together on our Zoom worship. And then, of course, after that Zoom worship, our annual meeting will be on Zoom again at 11:30 after this service. If you need an absentee ballot, we'll be voting by a poll. You'll see an example of that in today's service, actually, but we'll be voting by poll. And if you are not able to attend the Zoom meeting, there are absentee ballots available. You will find them in the annual meeting packet that you will receive by email this week. So let us now breathe together, opening our hearts to one another, to what we do not yet know, and to the spirit of curiosity. And let us enter sacred space.
We hope that everyone here has a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. Let's light our chalices together. We begin our service today with these words by Reverend Dana Worsnop. We welcome here all who seek, all who doubt, all who wonder, whether you seek community, rest for a weary soul, or both. We welcome here pilgrim souls with hearts and minds full of questions, full of curiosity, open to surprise, serendipity, whether yours are holy questions of the soul, daily questions of living together on the earth, or both. We welcome here all who thirst for justice, who hunger for wholeness, who question systems and conditions. Whether you yearn gently for fairness, fiercely for a world redeemed, or both. We welcome here all who are yet learning, leaning toward light and warmth, who are ready to be changed, whether you are learning more of compassion or bending and stretching into resilience, or both. We welcome here all who seek comfort not too quickly, all who love the questions themselves, whether they hope to expand in heart, mind, or spirit, or all three. We welcome you here. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. I'm Carolyn Bjerke, the music director. I'd like to invite you to join me in singing our opening hymn, Sing Out Praises for the Journey. Sing out praises for the journey, pilgrims we who carry on, searchers in the soul's deep yearnings, like our forebears bend their time. We seek out the Spirit's wholeness in the endless human quest. Look inside your souls, the kindling of the hearth fire pilgrims view. Find the Spirit always restless, minded in each mind and heart. Touch and hold that sacred yearning, kindling for a newfound truth. Stand we now upon the threshold, facing futures yet unknown. Hearth behind us, wayside hostel, built by those who knew wild roads. Guard we ere their sacred embers, carried in our minds and hearts.
Beautiful. Thank you, Carolyn. Good morning, everyone. My name is Fidelity Ballmer, and I'm the Religious Education Coordinator for our lovely congregation. So this morning, for our Time for the Child in Each of Us, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be using the polling feature on Zoom to answer some questions for all ages, and we have 3 of them. So how it's going to work is I'll ask each question and give you some time to think about it. Then you can choose your answer on Zoom. We'll share and consider the poll results together and then move on to the next question. So I'm going to open up the first question to show you what this can look like. Okay. Now, if you have 2 people on the same screen, we have considered a way to consider both votes. So the first person will answer option 1, however they choose. The second person will answer the second person only question. So if you are the only person voting, you are alone on your screen, go ahead and click NA for that option, for option 2. So this way, both people, if there are 2 people to one Zoom screen, can have a chance to vote. So whenever you get the chance, go ahead and choose. Our question is, would you rather have a magic carpet that flies or your own personal robot? So a magic carpet that flies or your own personal robot? What would you choose? Looks like we've got about half of folks ready. Give it a couple more seconds. Okay. Gonna go ahead and close the poll in just a few seconds so we can see our results. So go ahead and get your final answer in if you haven't had a chance to vote yet. Okay, here we go. I'm going to end the poll and then we're going to display the results so that we can all consider them together and see what other folks say. So here we go. Okay, so these are our poll results from poll number 1. So vast majority of folks went with a magic carpet that flies. Makes sense, gets you around. My answer was my own personal robot, I think because I was a big techno gadget kid when I was little. Love the personal robot. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to the next question. Go ahead and launch poll number 2. So this one is, would you rather be able to speak every single language or play every single instrument? And same setup as last time. If you have 2 screens, the second person can vote on the second person only question. So would you rather be able to speak every single language or play every single instrument?
So this is Reverend Dana popping in just to say this is a particularly tough choice. I know for many of us, because both things seem really, really intriguing and would be really useful. Huh. And we are forcing a choice here. We are.
Okay, so we're missing about 10 more people. We'll just give it a couple more seconds if anyone else wants to vote. This one's a little more split, much more split than last time as I'm looking at the results here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Just a few seconds and get your final votes in. Okay, here we go. I'll share the results. So 67% from first option said speak every language. So language did win out, but play every instrument also had a strong showing. So we have both linguists and musicians among us. Okay. All right. We'll go, and our very last question is more of a dilemma, a moral or ethical dilemma that you might be faced with. So the first 2 questions were choosing between 2 fun things, and you have to choose which fun thing you want to have. The third question is something difficult happens, and how are you going to respond to it? Okay, here we go. So your best friend has given you the exact shirt you wanted for your birthday, except you really don't like the color she picked out for you. It is your absolute least favorite color. So you have 2 choices. You can ask her for the receipt so you can go exchange it at the store, get maybe the same shirt, but a better color, more your style. Or do you say thank you and nothing more? What do you choose? We have about half of folks have voted. Oh, and we're getting about a completely even split so far of half and half. Okay, we'll do another maybe 20 more seconds. So get your final vote in when you're ready. Okay, Going to go ahead and end the poll now to make sure you're all good to go. And this is almost an exact tie. Here we go. So from the first one, 25 folks said ask for the receipt, and 27 said say thank you and nothing more. So we have pretty much a 50-50 split. And then also a 50-50 split on our second person screen. So we are pretty torn here on whether or not we're going to ask for the receipt or say thank you and nothing more. So I love this activity and love asking the different questions for all ages. I hope it can be a conversation starter for you and your family and your little ones as we consider all the ways in which we are alike and might answer questions similarly, and all the ways in which we are different. So we can kind of take some of these things for granted and assume that everyone would answer the exact same way that we would, but it can harbor some interesting debates. So carry this with you into your carpool conversations this week.
Thank you, Fidelity. We do love questions, and sometimes they are delightful things to consider, and sometimes they are challenging. Thank you for giving us a little bit of both. Each Sunday, this congregation gives away our collection to an organization in the community or to funds that help people in our own church. We now invite you to give online, which you're getting very adept at. So you will see the link on the next slide, and it will also be posted in the chat as a direct link. Our offering this morning goes to Food Share of Ventura County, which provides over 1 million pounds of food each month, including fresh fruits and vegetables to hungry individuals, families with children, and seniors via more than 190 pantry partners all over Ventura County. Food Share makes sure that those in need have access to food by working with medical centers, schools, churches, and senior centers who help spread the word. Today, 1 in 6 people in Ventura County is food insecure. They often must choose between food, utilities, medical care, or education. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, yet thousands of our neighbors are still struggling to get out of debt due to the pandemic. Food Share is here and will be here to help our hungry neighbors with dignity and with respect. A donation of $10 translates to 30 meals. Thank you for giving generously as you always do.
Sé que hay en tus ojos con solo mirar, que estás cansado de andar y de andar, y caminas girando siempre en un lugar. Sé que las ventanas se pueden abrir, cambiar el aire depende de ti, te ayudará, vale la pena una vez más, saber que se puede, querer que se pueda, quitarse los miedos, sacarlos afuera, pintarse la cara, color esperanza, de entrar al futuro con el corazón. Es mejor perderse que nunca embarcar, mejor tentarse a dejar de intentar, aunque ya ves que no es tan fácil empezar. Sé que lo imposible se puede lograr, que la tristeza
We are grateful for the generosity of this congregation, which weaves a tapestry of love we call community. This morning, we share a sorrow together. Marcy Burns, a long-time member of this church community, died peacefully this past Friday morning. Marcy was so beloved by so many in our church and beyond. She was such a kind, intrepid, radiant, and wise soul. We will miss her. I will let you know about memorial plans when the family has set them. In honor and remembrance of dear Marcy Burns, we light our memorial candle from the chalice flame and then extinguish the chalice for some moments of silent reflection. And then the chalice flame will be relit and both will be extinguished at the end of the service. For Marcy.
Each week, we lift up the joys and sorrows that have been shared with our community. You may share a joy or a sorrow from the link on our website, uuventura.org, or a link in our Thursday email bulletin, UUCV This Week. When we are together in our physical sanctuary, we drop stones in water for each joy or sorrow. The ripples that go out remind us that we are all connected. Here in our online sanctuary we make together today, we see the image of ripples that help us keep that connection. No new joys or sorrows were submitted this week, but I invite you now to speak aloud or in your heart the names of those you wish to celebrate or memorialize, or those who may need the loving embrace of this community. I also now invite you to type the names into our Zoom chat. By invoking their names, even when we may not hear them, you bring them into this circle of caring that we call community. We hold these names, spoken and unspoken, in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. May we be truly grateful for all that is our life.
Please join me in singing our next hymn, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.
To
begin my love within. The prophet soon turns strangely thin. Come, Spirit, calm our hearts' control. Our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every need. By this we worship and are free.
Our reading this morning is from Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. In the beginning, God created the earth, and God looked at it with cosmic loneliness, and God said, "Let us make living creatures out of mud." So God created every living creature that now moveth. And what was human? All those creation, mud as human, sat up, looked around and blinked. Then human spoke. "What is the purpose of all this?" human asked politely. "Everything must have a purpose?" asked God. "Certainly," said human. "Then I leave it to you to think of one for all this," said God. And God went away.
I invite you now into a time of stillness. Breathe and breathe again. What is the purpose of all this? The poet Rilke advises patience with all that is unresolved in your heart and to love the questions themselves. What is yet unresolved for you? What do you still wonder about? Have you yet found an answer to the purpose for all this? A silent meditation.
What a thing to be a witness to the sunshine. What a dream to just be walking on the ground. What a time to live among the ashen remnants of a love that came before, and I'm still looking for that now. It took centuries to build these twisted cities. It took seconds to reduce them down to dust. And all the tour guide could say was, "Take your pictures, folks, it's late. Try your best, please, to remember what was done." Don't look so forlorn, don't you look get so upset. This world was never fair. But there are hundreds of ways to get through the day. There are hundreds of ways. Now you just find one. I used to think that time was of the essence. Now I just wish I could get some sleep. All these strange parades of sounds the city makes when I lie down, little explosions that set fire to my dreams. Sometimes I get mistaken for this actor, and I guess that I can see it from the side. Maybe no one really seems to be the person that they mean to be. I hope I am forgotten when I die. Don't contradict me, don't make me cross the line. If you feel threatened, it's only 'cause I might. But there are hundreds of ways to get through the day. There are hundreds of ways to get through the day. There are hundreds of ways, so you best find one. All my heroes, they're all talk, running in circles, some stopwatch, some chaos. Love was the message, full stop. We ramble on and on. We ramble on and on. Hey! I stole all the rhinestones out of Carolina and sold them out in Bakersfield for cash. The band shell got a band sound like an arcade in Japan. Blew off my quarters trying to get that feeling back. Now any sucker can turn boredom into violence. A sociopath riding on a bus. His irises are black from his novelty contacts. He looks around but he can't see the rest of us. My sunglasses don't mind the blinding light. Yeah, it's getting dark, bro, but I've always loved the night. But there are hundreds of ways to get through the day. There are hundreds of ways to get through the day. There are hundreds of ways to get through the day. There are hundreds of ways to get through the day. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ways to get through the day. Just find one.
Thank you, as ever, dear elephants. So here we are. We have arrived at the question box portion of our service, and I get to answer a few of your questions, as many as I can in about 20 minutes. Yeah, there's a question box. I love how our Vonnegut reading this morning has it that the first words out of the first human's mouth were a question, and that God kind of threw up God's hands and walked away. Can't help you out here. So I have not seen any of these questions that folks submitted, though some of the wonderful folks on our worship team curated them and have come and will come in and ask them. And here we go. First question, please.
Where have you traveled that has had a deep impact on you, and why?
This answer comes very, very quickly to me. When I was 14 years old, I went to the Olympics in 1972. I was a gymnast, and my mom and I traveled. to Munich. And we got to see Olga Korbut and Ludmila Choristcheva, who people don't remember, won the all-round that year. And all of them got wiped out by Nadia Comaneci in the next Olympics. And now we get Simone Biles. So the Olympics is really, really meaningful to me, always has been. Love them. And rooting for Simone Biles massively this year. And that was not the part that was most moving for me. The Olympics were in Munich, and my mother and I went on a trip, and we visited Dachau, which was my first experience with the Holocaust, and it was incredibly moving to me. Many, many different parts, but there was also one of the things that really struck me was there was the statue in a square there's a museum, and then there's the barracks, and then they actually have a section where there are even ovens still there. And but this statue would look like an abstract from far away, and as I came closer and closer, it was a huge mass of sort of roundish of thin bodies reaching and stretching in their suffering. And I've never been quite the same since. That the knowledge of what we are capable of at our very worst perhaps has drawn me to figuring out what we can be capable of at our very best. We managed to leave just a day before. That is also the Olympics where the Israeli wrestling team was held hostage. And so the knowledge of the whole Israel-Palestine circumstance, that whole conundrum is the word that's coming to me, and it's so much bigger than that. But yeah. There was a time when I didn't know I had a question, and there was an answer of at least part of what we are capable of. So that is that one. Thank you. We don't start light. We just dive right in. Yeah, thank you. Next question, please.
Do transcendent experiences play a role in your personal theology? Please explain.
Oh my goodness, yes. The transcendent is the thing that I think pulls us out of ourselves and carries us into this other place where we have a sense of of possibility and maybe something larger than our limited experience in these limited bodies. We touch some of that. This is also where the transcendentalists are part of our tradition. So it's part of how and why I became a Unitarian Universalist. Transcendentalism, we just had this great covenant group essentially called Wellspring. It's a Unitarian Universalist specifically diving into spiritual practice and asking these questions, the big spiritual questions. And we had a whole session on transcendentalism, and somebody said, I never could figure out what transcendentalism is. And I came up, I've had trouble with it also. And I came up with an answer in that, because we have principles, 7 principles, looking at an 8th now. And we also have 6 sources of our faith. And there's a lot of richness in our sources. And the first source is direct experience of that transcendent mystery and wonder known in all cultures that guides us to something. I don't have it completely memorized. And what I realized is that the direct experience of transcendence, it is the direct experience of that the transcendentalists were about. And that it's also really powerful in our faith tradition, because what we have always said is that what we experience matters. And that transcendent mystery and wonder need not be anything magical. It need not be miraculous. It need not have anything to do with God or deity or that holy being. For me, it is that holy beingness that I just sense about me sometimes that makes me realize that I am connected to everything. I'm part of all of the cosmos, and I am this tiny speck, and just I contain multitudes, which is what Walt Whitman said. So yes, it is profoundly informs my experience, my theology. Yeah. Okay. Ask me another.
Sue?
I'll ask this for Sue because we're not hearing Sue. Or shall
I
we?
am sorry, Reverend Dana. Are we still waiting until September to reopen, even though California is opening completely on June 15th? If so, why?
Yes, we are still planning on waiting till September. And thank you. I know that there are disconnects in terms of timing. There are several reasons we are doing this. An abundance of caution, it is so. In fact, almost all Unitarian Universalist congregations, most of us are waiting till September. It's not, our cluster of congregations agreed to do this together in September. But it's also turning out that most of us are. And I do think that this is one of the few times I've ever been able to say this about Unitarian Universalists, but we are being very conservative about this. The pandemic is not done. And we had Memorial Day, we have the 4th of July. I keep saying we have the Olympics coming up. I fear that as much as I love the Olympics and that level of sport, etc., that may well turn out to be a super spreader event, perhaps not for us especially, but for us in the United States, but in the world. And I am concerned, and there are variants still to come out, that will happen. In fact, I heard recently that in fact, having that many people from different places come together is perfect for a virus to actually form some brand new variants. So there are cautious reasons for it. We are also in one of the areas of the United States that is likely to have, 80–90% vaccine coverage soon. We also are, though, paying attention to the fact that our kids under 12 aren't going to be ready even in September. So we're paying attention to what we do when and how we figure that out. Another reason for delaying this is that we have created really meaningful worship online. And there are some people who have said, I'm checking out till we come back together. I can't stand Zoom worship. And there are others who actually really appreciate it. I actually have found that I enjoy it. Who knew? I find it meaningful, and it's fun to create the worship services as such a team, because it really takes a team, much more of a team than it ever did. And we want to keep this option open. There are some people who cannot come to church. There will be people who will not want to come to church because they still feel vulnerable in some way. And we want the worship services to be meaningful as a hybrid. And so we have gotten a grant. It was a matching grant given by the Spirit Level Foundation. It was a matching grant for $8,000. They gave us $8,000, and I think we raised $8,000 within about 10 minutes of the word getting out to everybody. So we have $16,000 to invest in the equipment we need to make worship, a hybrid worship, meaningful. It's not just going to be, we'll set up a camera and show the whole service, just record it, stream it at a one camera distance. We're going to have probably about 3 cameras, and we're going to use monitors that help everybody who's in the sanctuary see the lyrics to the hymns. And we really, there's a team of people led by Kitty Merrill and Brian Fortune and Joe Osborne, figuring out how that's going to happen. The equipment is going to be purchased fairly soon and then installed, and we want to be up and running by late August so that we can practice maybe a little before we open the doors to everyone. I want to be able to open the doors wide and just say, let's have everybody come in. The reopening team has been working really hard on this. So I realize I just used the I pronoun, but it's such a we, because there's a reopening team that's been looking at all of the things that we need to do, including ventilation, which is the single most important factor in reducing risk, is good ventilation in the sanctuary, in any indoor space. And so that is all to say, we're just not rushing, and I know everyone is really eager. I am really comfortable now outside without a mask, and I'm still working out personally. This is me personally working out the indoors and things, even though I've been fully vaccinated for about a month now. So I know we're itching to get going. And we're also using the summer as an opportunity to do more collaboration with our cluster colleagues, cluster congregations. And so we are going to have 6 collaborative services online over the summer, which is going to give everybody who's been working very hard, the entire worship teams in 6 congregations, a little bit of time to have a little bit of rest before we do the next transition, because it just feels like there has been a transition after transition after transition. So this is the decision of the reopening team and the board. And we've all been on essentially the same page all the way through, even though it's not the same page that everyone is on all the time. And lastly, there are experts who are saying that they're worried that June 15th, or what the CDC has already said, is a little premature because there's still some things to unfold. So that was probably a longer answer. That may have been my longest answer today so far. So I'm ready for another question.
We often say that we want to create beloved community. How do you define that term, and what are the most important steps you hope we here at UUCV will take toward that goal?
Yeah, beloved community is definitely one of those. Sometimes I worry that we use that phrase often, maybe not too often, but without the depth, without real understanding of what the depth of that is. And one of the things that, a phrase that came to me as I was preparing for this service is from a hymn called Turn Back. And it's something like, the world made fair and all her people whole. And that is what, I think that is a description of what I would call beloved community, what Dr. King meant by beloved community. It's not original to him, but he certainly used it well. And, for me, beloved community is not Is it a process? It's an ongoing creation. It is something that we have to keep creating in every moment, because it's not like some people, I think of beloved community as like the rapture, when everything is going to be perfect and whole and holy and good, and everything will be redeemed for all time. And I think beloved community is a process. This is one of the reasons I'm a Unitarian Universalist, because there's no final destination. There's no final answer. We keep creating this together. So for me, beloved community is that process by which we try to be together, living from our best selves and being as inclusive. And it is equality and fairness and equity in human relations. And that whenever we realize that there is someone being harmed, whenever we realize there is some group being left out, whenever we examine our hearts and realize that we have closed them off in some way, intentionally or unintentionally, we examine and we open ourselves. Beloved community, also, I really want it to be a place where we are not afraid. We are not afraid to be wrong. We are not afraid to make a mistake. We are invited in to say, I'm actually learning this a little bit. It's taken me, 60 plus years to be less defensive when somebody points something out and go, oh, to be more curious, actually, to ask more questions. And we are so quick in this culture. We're so polarized and we're so quick to jump on each other and blame one another. And beloved community is also a place where that doesn't happen, and where we, Marge Piercy has a line in a poem. It begins when we say we and know who we mean. And each day we mean one more. Beloved community is where we meet, we invite one more in and one more in and one more in to the circle until we're all there. Yeah, that sounds good. I think I'll stop there, and I think that actually is probably what I really think about beloved community. Oh, I didn't answer the part of what we do as a community. I do think it is really, we're living in a time where so much is changing and growing, and we are learning. And a big part of being a beloved community is recognizing that the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s was really important, and we got to important places, and that work wasn't completed. And in fact, we regressed in lots and lots of ways. And so to take that spirit in civil rights, about being anti-racist and recognizing that white supremacy infuses our entire culture and has taken residence in all of our brains, and that we need to keep examining that, but also just the culture that has some people in charge, has some people with vastly more resources, has some people that get housing and some people who don't, that all of that is, we need to mean one more. And how we do that as a community is looking at it all. And then I'll stop because I kept going on that question. And my guess is that, yep, I think we have time for one more question. So I don't know which one that one is. So ask away.
What book would you recommend that we read, and why?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to come up with two. One that I think I need to reread myself There are so many books about race and racism and how to be anti-racist and they're proliferating. But I had this conversation with my nephew, who is 35 and actually now a college professor, sweet merciful heavens. And he had recently read Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And he said that he thought it was the most meaningful book on race that he had read, and that he very much wants to be able to share it with his son, my great nephew, Forrest Elliott Worsnop, when he is of an age to read that. And he also was talking about how, you know, it's Ta-Nehisi Coates just updated essentially James Baldwin for us. And it's a message that we need to keep hearing. So I would recommend that for myself to reread. And if you haven't read it yet, it's a good one. And then also I just finished reading a book that, 2 books that I was stunned that I had never even recognized before, that I didn't know they existed. It's called The Parable of the Sower and The Parable of the Talents by Octavia Butler, who was a science fiction writer, African-American science fiction writer. I think she wrote these books like in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s. She died in like 2008, 2009. So she didn't get to write the final book of the trilogy. They're science fiction, and they are both hopeful and dystopian. One of the things that's really cool is that the books, they start in the 2020s. She wrote them in the 80s. Yeah, I think the first book was written in 85. And she cast out into the future, into the 2020s. And she starts in Southern California. In this very dystopian, where climate change has wrought its great damage and great disruption to society. And the people in America have just elected an authoritarian president who uses conservative Christianity to reign over the land. There are many prescient things about it, and yet it ends up with a hopeful vision of how we can live together. And the main character has written scripture called Earthseed, the Book of the Living. And it's about that God is change. And I think that is very, there's all kinds of layers and levels and ways that it connects. And I think those are brilliant books. So those are the 2 that I recommend for us, for you, for all of us. Okay. I probably said more in this 20 minutes or whatever it's been than I usually do, because I'm not preaching, I'm just thinking out loud as I'm saying these things. So I hope that I didn't speak too fast or confuse the closed captions. If I'll be interested in seeing what the closed captions look like. So thank you very much for your questions. I am grateful always to be serving this congregation and be among people who are seeking and asking and wondering and asking some more, and who are trying very hard to be kind. And that there are 100 ways of living. There are probably hundreds of questions and hundreds of answers. And I invite us all to find one, and then one more, and then one more. And that love is the message, love is the answer, full stop. Amen. Whew. Okay. Let's let Carolyn sing us out. Or let's all sing together with Carolyn, out it back into the world.
That sounds good. All right, we are going to sing I Wish I Knew How for our closing hymn. Please join me. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all these chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things I could say 'em loud, say 'em clear for the whole world to hear. 'Em loud, say 'em clear for the whole world to hear. I wish I could share all the love in my heart, remove all the bars that still keep us apart. I wish you could know what it means to be me, then you'd see and agree everyone should be free. Then you'd see and agree everyone should be free. I wish I could give all I'm longing to give. I wish I could live like I'm longing to live. I so wish I could do all the things I can do, but I'm way overdue. I'd be starting anew. Then I'm way overdue. I'd be starting anew. I wish I could be like a bird in the sky. How sweet it would be if I found I could fly. I whisper to the sun and look down at the sea. Then I'd sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free. Then I'd sing 'cause I know how it feels to be free.
Please join Reverend Dana and me in extinguishing your chalice at home. Reverend Dana will also extinguish the memorial candle. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. Those we carry into our lives until we are together again.
So after the postlude, everyone will be placed in breakout rooms for a virtual coffee hour. And even if you are new, we sincerely invite you to join in and ask each other some questions that you want to know more about. You can join the group or opt out at that point. I leave you with words, more words from the poet Rainer Maria Rilke. Be patient toward all that is unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves. Don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then someday in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. the answer, which is almost always love, one way or the other. Go forth in peace. Go forth in good health. Go forth in love. May it be so.